The Barefoot Lawyer Reports on China is currently sponsoring an essay contest for students of all ages. This year's prompt asks writers to describe a human rights issue in communist China that they think deserves more attention, what current efforts are addressing it, and what can be done in the future to resolve it. To learn more about this contest, please go to catholic.edu/chr and visit our Human Rights Essay Contest page.
Welcome to another episode of the Barefoot Lawyer Podcast. I'm William Saunders. I'm the director of the Center for Human Rights at the Catholic University of America, where we're proud to have Chen Guangcheng as a distinguished fellow. Today, I'm going to talk with Eric Lai, who is a research professor at the Center for Asian Studies at Georgetown University, about the situation in Hong Kong. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you, Will.
So, Eric, I think that not everybody, although many people are concerned about the situation in Hong Kong, not many people follow it on a day-to-day basis. Of course, we're going to talk about the human rights situation, particularly religious liberty. But maybe you could give us kind of a brief overview of, take us back, because some people, may have gotten involved in this issue before 2020. So just kind of sketch a little bit of why do we, even care about Hong Kong? Why is this a special case? What's been happening, Hong Kong's special status? Just give a brief overview of that, and then we'll get into specifics.
Right. Since 1997, when Hong Kong was handed over from the British colonial rule to People's Republic of China, or the Chinese Communist Party regime, the CCP promised Hong Kong to have a special administrative region status, that Hong Kong people can enjoy their own ways of life, just like how the British government allowed it for the city. And under the Joint Declaration, the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region would eventually set up its a basic law, a constitutional order, that universal suffrage was promised, and a list of basic rights and fundamental freedoms, including free speech, free associations, free peaceful assembly, rights to fair trial, as well as the right to religious liberty, are guaranteed in accordance with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, that is the ICCPR rights, as a core document of the international human rights law. So against this background, even though Hong Kong was returned to the Chinese Communist Party regime of China, people still feel that they could enjoy an open society. People can speak up whatever they want to. They have guarantees of free speech, and people could also engage in civil society. And people believe the Hong Kong's legal system enjoys a high degree of judicial independence and the rule of law. But all these elements, all these rights-respecting institutions are unfortunately falling one by one after 2020, when Beijing imposed a national security law in Hong Kong.
Right. And so we're kind of obviously focusing on the post-2020, when they imposed that national security law. Could you tell us, again, we got to speak in general terms, but what did the national security, I was involved, and you were, I'm sure, and many other people, and followed some of the protests in Hong Kong, but what was that about? What was the national security law about?
The Chinese government repeatedly accused the Hong Kong pro-democracy movement in 2019 was a threat to national security. And therefore, they imposed a new national security law on Hong Kong, and that law was never consulted by the local public or the local legislature. And it introduced not just new offenses like subversion, secession, terrorist acts, or colluding with foreign forces. They also established virtually a new criminal court They do not establish a new criminal court, but they have new proceedings that judges handling these national security cases are selected, handpicked by the chief executive. And the executive government can remove a jury trial from national security cases. And all these new arrangements just make Hong Kong's Hong Kong state of judicial independence and the rule of law become at stake. And as I mentioned, people have been enjoying free speech and free political participations in the past, even under the shadow of China. But the new national security law actually criminalizes all speech-related activities if they are critical of the Hong Kong government. In the past 3.5 years, we have seen more than 250 people got arrested simply because they made public speeches against the government, and the government alleged them making speeches as seditious or making publications involving in non-violent activities as pro-democracy actions. So all these sagas in the past 3.5 years show is not about national security at all. It's about the security of the party regime.
Yeah, I think that's the essential point is this national security law is not what somebody here in the U.S. or elsewhere listening to this in the West might think. It is not about national security. Well, let's put it this way. It changes what would be the intuitive definition of national security. Now, national security under this law means criticism of the ruling, essentially of the CCP, for which you are deprived of freedom of speech, press, and even religion to an extent we'll talk about, and can be subjected to trials without the kind of protection for yourself that we would assume anybody would get in the West, right?
Right. I think this is very important to distinguish national security from what we learn from the Western countries. When we talk about national security in the West, people will associate with counterterrorism, would associate with terrorist acts, terrorist associations. But in the context of Hong Kong and China, they are not talking about counterterrorism at all. They are talking about protecting the party state from liberal values and to introduce nationalistic sentiment by victimizing the Chinese people and the Chinese country, and to accuse all external forces or foreign powers are trying to threaten or to break the security of the people in China and Hong Kong.
So that means basically, the government is protecting itself and saying that any criticism is against national security, which means it would be free from criticism. So it's just a kind of an anti-democratic move, like you said, anti-liberal values, which is a fair trial and free speech.
Yes, and another obvious example is that in 2021, after they introduced a new national security law, they also reshuffled the whole electoral system. Yeah, all the directly elected lawmakers from the opposition were almost gone because they were not allowed to run for elections. And they reshuffled the whole electoral system to make it so-called patriotic patriots administering Hong Kong, which means they only believe the people they selected, people they chose, are patriotic enough than then those lawmakers having popular mandate. So this is another example of how they treat the political system as to safeguard the party's interest, to safeguard election security or political security are just covers of protecting the party regime.
You've been listening to part 1 of a Barefoot Lawyer Reports on China interview with Eric Lai. Check back next week for part 2.